This one goes out to my Benko Gambit friends out there because I love the style and ideas of the Benko Gambit, and I incorporate it into, say, my King's Indian and, say, pseudo Benoni positions on a regular basis. And I have for many years. So this game, we're going to get a same-ish King's Indian, and for a long time, the same-ish gave me trouble, and I started looking at all these different variations to play, and I settled for a while on a6, c6, b5 without castling, and the Bryan plan. And I found that the Bryan plan is pretty good, and it will trick the unprepared player. I'd say it works very, very well up until, say, 2,000 plus USCF, as that's when players start working on their openings. Probably 2,100 plus is a better range for when that should stop being played. But it didn't stop players like Grandmaster Perlstein from using it for years, but that was definitely in the age of pre-chessable and hardcore opening preparation that's accessible to everyone. It's like, well, why do you say it's chessable? Well, the difference is, back in the day when they'd come out with an opening book, top guy would come out with an opening book and go, these are the lines. But those were the lines that everybody knew about, say, 6 months to a year beforehand. They were played out, and they're giving you the old stuff. Now, when everyone can ask questions, they have the engine running, have the database, and they have modern games coming in on a daily basis, it seems. It's easy to go, well, why didn't you cover this critical variation? There's no hiding anymore, preparation-wise. Get the best stuff. Everybody else is. I digress. After castles, bishop e3, and the lines with e5, they're still playable, but it just seems to really play into white's hands and what he wants. So I do feel that the best lines are going to be with c5, but when playing against lower rated players, I don't like offering any position to where they can trade queens early. This is just a general theme in my games because very often, as we've seen, typically when I play the French, I get the exchange French in 6 out of 10 games, and it's a rating difference thing. Or they see a title. Oh no, you might be good. I better play something that isn't intimidating for me to play. What would you rather face? A player that's 200 points lower rated than you, that knows that you're a better in-game player than they are. So they're going to play as aggressively as possible in the opening and middle game. They're going to sack pieces. They're going to do whatever they can to try to beat you and complicate the position. Or have someone play passively, a slow position. Very often, they're playing for a draw, which is a terrible mindset. They go wrong, and you slowly outplay them in an endgame, equal or not. Very, very rarely are you going to see the lower-rated player win these slow positional games against someone 200 points higher. Their hope is that the higher-rated player gets a draw position and pushes too hard and loses. That's all they got. I'd much rather face Category B than Category A. Category A, that can be intimidating when they're coming after you. So, back to the main game. If I want to keep tension and play c5, knight bd7. Now c5. We get our King's Indian position. And now with the knight on d7, the Benko plans are off the table. There's no e6, of course, because of captures and the d-pawn. It's going to be a problem for us. So we can't touch the e-pawn. It's got to be a plan on the queen side. So we'll start with a6. You go, well, what happens if he doesn't want you to do this and he plays a4? Well, I'm going to go knight e5, and I'm back to the Benko plan. He went h4. Now, I see h4 and I see I'm going all out. I just want to play h5. I want to take. I want to play bishop h6. I want to take. And then I want to mate you. This is seen very often in Sicilians. But unlike Sicilians, I can do h5 and it kind of stops this. He goes knight h3. Good time to play b5. Now, we've given a pawn for play. How do we make the most out of the position? Let's start with queen a5. Just putting some pressure on the knight on c3 and keeping an eye on that bishop on a6. So he runs away, makes sense. Now we go bishop a6. We're moving the bishop around quite a lot. Castles. Now let's go knight e5. So for the price of a pawn, we've gotten some key squares, and I'm looking at the knight potentially going to c4. Opponent goes knight g5. Is knight c4 best here? Well, if we go knight c4 preemptively, we run into a situation where the bishop's kind of doing nothing on c4. This is one of those impulse buy decisions. People say, well, that was the plan, but you just traded off an attacking piece for a defensive piece, and that was his bad bishop in the situation. If we're going to make the trade, we want him to take our bishop, so our queen will still be controlling key squares. Say, for instance, if takes, we're still eyeing these key squares. Rook b8 followed by knight c4 will be devastating. Well, knight g5, rook fb8. Get everybody invited to the party. We sack the pawn in order to get play. Keep tension and get play. Rook fb1. Well, how can we get the most out of the position here? Well, having experience playing these, say, okay, I want the c4 square for my knight. Capture. I want the c4 square for my knight. Okay. He goes a4. Now, if you had to give an evaluation on this position, give that numerical value. What do you think? Is white still a pawn up? Or has this, is it the Benko pawn loss? Or is it the Benko Gambit still? Knight c4, and black is a pawn and change up, about a pawn and a quarter. So if you said that, good on you. Now I want to get the most out of this, so let's invite everybody to the party. Knight d7, threatening potentially bishop takes c3 at some point. But I can just take my time and load up. There's no hurry here. Goes knight b5. Knight de5 was definitely could be improved upon here. Knight a5 is good, or knight d to b6. Knight e5 is probably my only blemish in the game. But my opponent goes knight h3 and allows me to have full optimization, compare all of black's pieces to all of white's pieces. And this is just monstrous. There's not much that can be done here. Black's 5 points in the green from this activity. And after rook a2, what ended things nicely, rook takes b5. And this is just a highlighting of ideas and memory markers on playing these Benko Gambit positions. So hopefully you enjoyed it.